Hello and welcome to everybody. Morning, afternoon, evening, from whichever part of the world you're logging in. This is Pratigya Haran bringing to you the Chennai Storytelling Festival's 13th edition, where amongst a lot of storytelling and workshops, we have a series of 12 two-hour sessions of stories exclusively by and for adults. And today we are logged in for the fifth of a series of 12. And as I said, I'm Pratigya Haran from Chennai. Happy to help out with this festival. And we're going to kickstart with our first teller of the day. Let me just spotlight you. We have Shilpa Mehta, who's logging in from Jaipur, India. Welcome, Shilpa. Welcome to Storytelling Sessions. Please introduce yourself fully and share a story with us.
You're on mute, Shilpa.
You're on mute, Shilpa.
Unmute yourself. Nope, still on mute. Yes.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining in today. I'm Shilpa Mehta from Jaipur, and I'm really thankful to Dr. Eric Miller for giving me this opportunity to be a part of this wonderful festival again. Today, I'm sharing The Little Mermaid by Hans Andersen, which I have adapted to retell. Underneath the ocean was a kingdom, and in that kingdom was a family of mermaids. There was the mother mermaid and her 7 daughters. Lily was the youngest of 7. She may have been small and young, but her joy was larger than life. Now, each of these 7 daughters were born exactly 365 days after the other. They all shared the same birth date, but not the same age. And that's very important because when a mermaid turned 15, she was allowed to swim up to the surface, breaking the ocean waters to have a look at the human world for the first time. She swims back down and shares the stories of what she has seen. For many years, Lily heard stories of people, festivities, music, and dancing, and she just could not wait. Then it was her turn. She swam up to the surface and broke the ocean waters. She saw the human world for the first time. She saw people, carriages, horses. And right nearby, there was a boat. On the boat, a celebration was going on. There were people, music, dance. That was how she wanted to spend the night. Just listening and observing. She listened and observed so much that she did not notice that the sun was beginning to set, and as soon as the darkness passed over the ocean, there were bursts of fireworks, red, blue, orange, yellow, and white with lightning. They had so much fun celebrating that neither Lily nor the people on the ship seemed to notice the dark black clouds rolling in. The water was upset and angry. And if Lily had not been a mermaid, she would have drowned. The storm quickly overtook the ship. Some of the sailors got to the shore either by swimming or grabbing onto debris. Luckily, there were a couple of lifeboats. Some were not so lucky. That's when Lily sprang into action. She swam and pulled 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 sailors out of the water. When she pulled the 5th sailor, she noticed that he was around her age. She pulled him onto sand and looked at him. He had dark hair curling around his face. The white shirt he was wearing clung to his muscles. She was mesmerized. Oh, she could stare at him for eternity as she wanted more than anything for him to open his eyes and see her. Open your eyes. Open your eyes. Open your eyes. But before he could, or before she could do anything further, A woman and her friends came from the temple to the beach to tend the young man. Well, Lily knew the consequences if she got caught. So she jumped back into the ocean and swam down all the way back to her kingdom. Her sisters were worried about her. Where have you been? We have been waiting for you. What did you see? Oh, I saw wonderful things. I saw music and dancing. There was a storm. There were sailors in the water, and I put them ashore. Her sisters were so enthralled by her story. But Lily could not stop thinking about the man, about how all she wanted to do was just to be near and be around him. So she went to her mother. Mom, how long do humans live? Do they live as long as mermaids? Dear, humans don't live long as mermaids. Mermaids live 300 years and then we dissolve into sea foam. We cease to exist, whereas humans have a much shorter lifespan. Because they have a shorter lifespan, they were granted a soul. Some things mermaids don't have. And when humans die, their soul ascends to heaven where they live for eternity. And the more she thought about it, the more upset she was. She didn't want to watch that young man spend his whole life and then die, and she will never be able to see him again. So she went to the person who could solve the problem, the sea witch, who had an answer for every problem. She had poems for sad days, songs for happy days, potions for problems, remedies for sickness, and just anything you can imagine. So Lily went to her and told her about her problem. Ah, hmm. So, do you want to watch him for all of his days or do you want to be near him? I want to be human. Is that possible for a mermaid to be human so that I can go and be with him? I don't know him, but I know that I love him more than anything. Please, please, I want to be human. The sea witch nodded and she swam over to her big shelf having potions. Potions of different colors and sizes. Some were bubbling. Some were completely still. Some seemed solid. Some had stuff floating in it. She picked up a potion, gave it to Lily. This will turn you into a human. But there is one condition and three things you need to know. The condition is that you will be human. As he falls in love with you, some of his soul will be parted into you. And then you will be able to live for eternity. But if he falls in love with someone else, the dawn after the night of their marriage, you will dissolve into sea foam and cease to exist. And the three things you need to know. The first is that this potion will give you legs, but it will feel as though a sword is ripping through you. The pain will be unbearable, but you will have legs. The second is that when you will dance more gracefully, more beautifully than any human has ever been able to do. But it will feel as though you were dancing on 1,000 tiny knives. And the third is that every potion comes with a price. I just can't give this to you. What is the price? You see, it's different for everyone. But for you, my little mermaid, it's your voice. You have the most beautiful voice anyone has ever heard. You have the voice that comes around once in a generation. That's the price of the potion. The most desirable voice for the potion you most desire. Are you willing to pay the price? Oh, yes. Yes, of course, yes. Anything to be human, anything to be near him. The sea witch swam over to Lily. She stroked her face and cut her tongue, silencing her forever. She then handed the potion and said, "Remember, you have to swim to the surface because once you drink the potion, it will turn you human and you will no longer be able to breathe underwater." Lily just did that. She swam to the surface where the kingdom was. She dragged herself onto the sand and happily drank the potion, thinking of a new life. Immediately, the pain started. It felt like she was being torn from the inside. It felt as though a knife was being taken from her throat to the tip of her tail, and she passed out from the pain. When she woke up, she saw him. The man had come to the beach to see what was going on. He was taken aback by her beauty and grace. He took her to the palace. Now, Lily was not able to talk to him, but she was able to offer him something much more valuable: listening ears. She became her confidant. She danced to bring him joy. They had such wonderful times. She became his companion. They went on outings together. He adored her. But he adored her as one would do to a pet and not as one would adore a person. And that is as far as their relationship was able to grow. It hurt Lily, but she was able to be around him, and that's all she ever really wanted. Until the day came when the prince's parents announced that he would be having an arranged marriage to the neighboring princess. He went to Lily. "There's no way that I could marry that neighboring princess. I don't know her, so I could never love her. I can't do this. The only person I will ever love is the person who saved me. And she is the temple woman who saved me when my ship was sinking and I was drowning. She is the only one that I could ever love." But his parents wouldn't hear another word until he at least met the girl. Well, so he agreed to meet her. When he saw her, she was the temple woman. She was the neighboring princess. That day she had come with her maids to the temple. And he said, "Yes, yes, of course I will marry you, of course. How could I not marry you? You saved my life." They had a beautiful wedding on a boat. Lily was invited. She stood in a dark corner of the boat near the ocean, watching the wedding celebration. Sobbing, she was in despair. I hate that I gave up my voice for legs. I hate that I put myself through so much pain for a man who never loved me. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. For a moment, she even hated him. Him. He was the reason that she had put herself through all of that pain. He was the reason. And now she will never be able to see her family again. She would turn to sea foam and cease to exist. But just at that moment, her six sisters popped up from the ocean. Each of them had cut their hair very short. "Lily, the sea witch has told us everything. She has a solution to the problem. We have cut all our hair for this dagger. This dagger will let you back into the ocean." All you have to do is to kill him and let the blood drip onto your feet. And then you can join us forever. You will not have your voice back, but at least you will be with your family. Lily took the dagger and went into the marriage chamber. She saw the bride lying in the bed. You claim to be a savior, but you saved no one. You are a liar. And then she turned to the prince. Oh, she was ready. She remembered all the good times that she had spent with him. No, I can't do that. I can't kill him. I still love him. So she walked out next to the boat and jumped in the ocean. She turned to sea foam, but she did not cease to exist. She felt the warm sun on her face, heard the birds and lapping of the water on the boat, and found herself to be surrounded by spirits. They said, "We are the daughters of air, and you have been granted a second chance. 300 years is what it takes. You will have to do a good deed every day for 300 years, and you will be given mortality." And that is exactly what Lily did. Thank you.
Thank you, Shilpa. The story of love in the month of Valentine, an interesting choice, I must say.
Thank you.
Lovely telling, interesting way, the way you shared the entire story and what Lily went through. Opening it up to the audience, any thoughts, ideas, what you liked about Shilpa's telling and story? Yes, Veena, please go ahead.
Wonderful storytelling as always, Shilpa. Love your storytelling. The way you take pauses in between. You come close to the screen. I've often seen you do that. That makes a lot of difference. I love this story a lot. And the learnings that we learn. For love, people go to any extent without even thinking about the consequences. Later, when they realize, so I love this story a lot. Wonderful storytelling. Loved your narrative and your expressions.
Thank you so
So
much.
much. Thank you.
Yes. Anybody else?
It was really good. I was expecting what is going to happen at the end.
Thank
A
you.
fantasy story which may be unbelievable, but she made it so believable, and I really enjoyed the way it was told. So now I come to the conclusion that it could be any story that is told, but if it is told well, you can enjoy any kind of story. So that is one very good point for Shilpa to have told the story. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Indra, for those warm words. Anybody else? Shilpa, I want to ask you, I think I have heard you tell stories a lot of times, but somehow I feel I've only heard you tell your own stories. I'm not sure if I've heard you tell, any
Yes.
other authored story. So why this story, or what brought you closer to the story?
Well, actually, when I was researching, I thought, let me choose a love story, but I didn't want to go in for regular love story. So why this story spoke to me that, at times we love someone, but, we are unable to tell how much we love or how we feel about them. And we are happy for them and we try to show that we are happy for them in public, whereas inside we are totally broken. So I felt that this story had this essence. So that was the reason of choosing this story.
Okay, all right. Anybody else? Any other thoughts? Okay, with that, that's a big thank you to you, Shilpa. Thanks for
Thank
sharing
you
the
so
Little
much.
Mermaid with us.
Thank you.
Let's move on to our next teller. We have Vineetha C from Chennai sharing a story with us. Welcome to the platform, Vineetha. Please introduce yourself fully, unmute yourself, and share a story with us.
Yeah, hi everybody. This is Vineetha from Chennai, and I started storytelling um, just for to come out of my postpartum blues, and then now storytelling has become my passion. I really enjoy telling stories. So today I'm going to tell a story from a story called "Where Love Is, God Is" from Leo Tolstoy. But I'm not going to tell the exact story. It is my version of the story. So, yeah, let's jump into the story. Once upon a time, there lived Martin. He was a skilled cobbler. He lived in the basement of an apartment which had only one window. So, through that window, he could see the streets. Martin was such a skilled laborer that he will not deceive people. If he thinks that he is able to do his job, he will take it up. Otherwise, he will bluntly refuse it. So Martin had many acquaintances in the city because he has lived there for a very long time, and he can identify their faces seeing their boots because he had worked with almost all the boots in the city. Martin had a really sorrow past. He was very unlucky with his children because his three children died very early. Even his wife died early, leaving Martin and the fourth child. Martin lived for his younger son. He felt a lot of peace because he had a son with him. But one fine day, his son fell sick and died within a week. Martin could not withstand that sorrow. He was really in deep sadness. He felt like there was nobody for him. He was in deep despair and agony. He had a lot of questions running in his mind. Why should I live? Why did God do this to me? Is God really a fair God? Martin thought, no, God is really unfair. How could God take my only son and who had a future and leave me? I'm old. So Martin had so many questions running in his mind, and he wept day in and day out. So he couldn't find any answer for it, and he was simply sad and continued doing his work, which gave him a bit of joy. One day, when Martin went to the market, he saw a missionary, and accidentally they developed a conversation. The missionary asked Martin, Martin, I find you to be in deep sorrow. Is there any problem? If you wish, you can share with me. Martin really wanted to open up to the missionary and said, um, I am indeed in deep misery. All my four children left me, and even my wife left me. I have no one to live for in this world. Why should I live? God is really unfair. He took all my children and left me alone in this world. He even took my wife, my beloved wife. Why should I live? I have no hope, said Martin. The missionary immediately listened to Martin, and he searched his bag and took a New Testament out and gave the Bible to Martin and said, Martin, you read this. You will get all your answers for your question in this. And he left. He simply left and he didn't speak a word. Martin didn't bother to read the Bible. He just left it in his table and continued doing his work. One fine day, Martin had the time and he sat with the scripture before he went to sleep. As Martin read the scriptures, he happened to find a lot of answers to his questions, and he kind of felt a little bit of peace reading the scriptures. So, from that day onwards, Martin started reading the scriptures and went in deep thoughts. So, this continued for months, and one fine day, when Martin started reading the scriptures, he, as usual, went into deep thought and fell asleep. There, he heard a voice saying, Hey, Martin, I will meet you tomorrow. Martin woke up the next morning and he was really confused. Was that voice real? Was it a dream? Did I have a dream? Or did someone really speak to me? Is it God? I heard that God will speak to people, but is it really God? Okay, let me hope that God will come and meet me today. That day, Martin looked out for God. He looked through his window, hoping that God will meet him that day, and continued to stitch all the boots he had. So when he was stitching one of his boots, Martin saw his neighbor Stephen. Stephen was indeed very old, older than Martin. And that day, the snow was really heavy. So Stephen began to clear up all the snow. Martin thought, okay, Stephen is clearing all the snow for God to come. He was clearing all the snow, and Stephen was really sick. He couldn't withstand the cold. He leaned near a post to warm up a bit. Martin saw that and felt really sorry for Stephen, and immediately he rushed outside and called Stephen in for a warm drink. He made hot tea for Stephen, and he asked Stephen to sit. Stephen was very excited and, in fact, relieved because there was someone to ask him come inside and have a tea, because Stephen also didn't have anyone. They shared a few words, and while talking to Stephen, Martin was constantly looking at the window. Stephen noticed that, and he thought that Martin was waiting for someone and left immediately, having this tea, and said, "Martin, God bless you for the hot drink. I really wanted it because my bones ached. Thank you so much." And Stephen left. Martin continued to wait for God, and in the evening, through the window, when he was waiting for God, he saw a young lady carrying a 3 or 4 months baby. She was struggling to warm the baby up because she didn't have any warm clothes. Martin saw that and felt pity for the young woman. He went outside and brought her in and said, "Lady, don't you have any warm clothes? Your baby is struggling, and you're so thin. Have you had something to eat?" The lady said, "No, sir, I don't have anything." Martin immediately bought a bowl of soup and a few pieces of bread and gave her. And the young lady said, "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much." She sipped the soup and said, "I am a soldier's wife. My husband has went somewhere and have not heard from him for so long. I was a cook in the landlady's house nearby, but I lost the job. Someone told me that there is a job in the next town, and they promised me a job, and they asked me to come tomorrow. I'm on the way to go. Thank you so much." Martin gave a place for her so that she could feed the baby. And while she was feeding the baby, Martin made some more food so that she could pack and she could take it along with her. And when she left, Martin gave some amount of cash so that she could use it. And again, Martin, in the night, till night, Martin was looking at the window, but no one turned up. Martin did lose some hope, and he was disappointed. But he didn't care much because he was still in a confusion whether it was a dream or it was real. And that day when Martin sat down to read the scriptures, he saw someone in the corner, in the dark corner. There was someone. Martin looked around and he felt that there was someone. He was looking at the corner, and there he heard a voice. "Hey, Martin, didn't you recognize me?" Martin was awestruck. He was looking at the corner. It is I. Stephen's image appeared, and it disappeared like a cloud. It was I. The lady and the baby laughed, and they too disappeared. Martin was really surprised and he was so happy and joyful. Martin thought, yes, God has met me. And he understood that God has met him and he has treated God well and realized where love is, God is. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Vineetha. I remember reading this story quite a long time ago. Thank you for reminding me this beautiful story, such a heartwarming story about, in a way how we think of God to be, this huge, um, big kind of a feeling or a person or a thing out there, outside, away, someone to look up to. But it's a very simple story to just tell you how just looking and loving and taking care of each other is just as good as being godly. So that's a beautiful story. Thanks for that. Thanks a lot. Opening it up to the audience. Anybody wants to share their thoughts with Vineetha? So, Vineetha, you said you've only just started telling stories recently. So, do you usually tell your own stories? Do you write them? Do you adapt more stories? What kind of stories do you enjoy doing?
It's been only a year since I started. I started with Eric's workshop. Thank you to Eric because he has pushed me into storytelling. Now I love telling stories. Mainly, I tell adapted stories.
Okay.
The stories which I like, and I tweak it a bit so that I can tell my own version of the story.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I was impressed because it was a long story with many details, and you were quite fluently able to tell it, which is great because I know I learn a lot of stories, and sometimes I'm challenged if there are many details I have to remember. And I think you did really well, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes,
Your storytelling has really improved.
Thank you.
You're much more relaxed now. I remember last year you were more halting,
Yeah,
but now you're much more fluent.
Thank you.
It's not a language issue, it's just a matter of a performance issue, and you're much more relaxed.
Thank you so much.
Thanks to you, Eric, for always giving us platform for each one of us, no matter what stage of storytelling life we are in, always happy to give us space and grow and mature.
Yeah, thank you, Eric.
Adding to what Nilkuman, am I pronouncing your name right or is it all wrong?
No, it's perfectly pronounced. Thank you very much. Thank
Okay,
you.
all right. It's a new word for me. I just want to be sure. So the way you were saying, sometimes we like a story specifically for the details as well. Because sometimes the way the story is written, the author has added so many nuances in those small little details, and that pulls you to the story. And when you come to telling that story, it's such a difficult choice what to pick and what to leave and still let the story flow really well. And I think, as you said, Vineetha has done an excellent job on that. To an audience, it didn't feel like any of the details were left out, and yet the flow of the story was just beautiful. So excellent, Vineetha, and very well pointed out everywhere.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. We'll move to our next teller. Thank you once again, Vineetha. We have Meenakshi Devaraj again from Chennai. Hi, Meenakshi. Thank you so much for coming over here. Do you want to tilt your video because right now we can see only half your face?
Okay, now?
Perfect.
Okay.
Please introduce yourself fully and looks like you're sharing a very interesting story. So share a story as well.
Thanks for that small introduction, Pratigya. I'm Meenakshi Devaraj from Chennai. I'm basically a cultural historian and a column artist, and also founder of a cultural organization called Nampayanam. The story which I'm going to tell you today is based on a literature which was written around 2000 years before in Tamil by Uttaram Kannanar, and not much of tweaking, but just to make it interesting, very small changes I have made, but the fact is the same. There was a harp musician who was traveling on a sunny day. This musician was carrying with lot of gifts and all, and he was very happy, and he was walking on his way home. On the way, he saw another musician who was, very puny, very bony, along with his family. And the very sight of him, you could found that, this guy is very poor and he's really starving to make his living. The musician's eyes fell on the harp which he was carrying, as he himself was a harp musician. He was just, looking at the beautifully carved artistic harp, but he was not able to enjoy the art skill of the harp on seeing the pathetic situation of this poor musician. So he told the poor guy, "See, I'll tell you one thing. I'm just back from the historic city of Kanjipuram. You should definitely visit Kanjipuram and you should meet the king Thirayan. He's such a nice guy. He loves harp musicians like us." But this poor guy was quite hesitant and he said, "See, traveling to Kanjipuram is not easy. I have to cross through the various landscapes. I'm quite scared. Instead of that, I better be here. I'll just roam around and try to find some living for my own." He said, "Say, don't worry. I'll tell you, the journey will be very smooth. Please believe me. When you start the journey, you have to definitely start in the highway, and it's not going to be only you who's going to be traveling. There'll be a lot of salt merchants who are traveling along with their family. The place is so safe that the women's will be driving the carts which carry the salts and other things for their living. You will have even little children traveling along with them. You will have donkeys carrying heaps of pepper. Imagine pepper being such a costly thing. You will have guardians all over the highway. You will even have toll plazas which take tax from these pepper merchants and which are highly guarded. So the highway is very, very, very safe for you to travel with all these traders with so much of security throughout. Then, of course, you will have the desert region, or Palai, which is very dry, where there is great difficulty to find water or food. Yes, I do understand, and the people there don't have enough food for themselves. They literally go on hunting the animals out there. But the women somehow manage to gather the grains which are taken by the ants from the other places, and they somehow manage to cook with the broken vessels, and they also have some dry pieces of fish which they usually consume. But believe me, the moment they see you playing the harp, they'll feel so happy to hear these positive notes from you. They'll just offer the food they have as if they're giving it to their own God. So you can happily have the food from there and keep traveling and cross this Pali region, which you would be really scared of. Once you cross the Pali region, where food and water, everything is so scarce to get, you will start seeing the tall mountains. These are the Kurunji landscape areas which you are going to cross. Women there are again very strong. They don't even get scared of the lions and the tigers and the snakes which you will find over there. They literally play with them. The men there have their own work. The main work is to go in the early morning to neighborhood places, steal the cattle from there, and sell the cattle to get some rice liquor. In the evening, it's completely full of joy. They drink the rice liquor, they play the musical instruments. They have their own musical instruments, which they play according with their own musical notes, which are again attached to the Kurunji landscapes, and it's going to be all fun. So when you're going to go there, you will also be offered this special rice liquor, which are made in the Kurunji landscape. Just stay there, have fun, and keep moving. Once you start moving from the mountainous regions nearby, you will find some establishments which are actually the settlements of the covered people. The moment you step there, you will find all junks everywhere. All the powders will be spread out, all the cow sanam powders will be spread out everywhere. Everywhere you can find cows and goats and all. And all the entire establishment will be built to suit the cattle, which live more than the actual human being over there. Don't miss the morning scene over there. The more covered women get up early morning, as early as 3 o'clock. They'll start churning their curd. It's so musical to hear the jewel sounds along with their churning sound. Oh my God. And they have special jewels made for them. Once they make their buttermilk, then they go out selling the buttermilk, and this is how they make their living. The money got from their buttermilk is exchanged with rice, which makes their major food. They do have a good amount of money by selling the ghee which they get from their cattle. But this money they do not use to buy jewels or, to live a more luxurious life. Instead, they again go buying more cattle. These women and men are so close to cattle, they even eat their food along with their cattle together. When you go there, they again will provide you good amount of thinai rice, the foxtail millet rice, along with curd. These foxtail millets would have been grown from the nearby Kurunji mountainous landscape. So you can enjoy that. So then again, if you take a walk and keep moving along with your family, you will have the forest regions, the Mullai, the actual place of the covered people. There you will find all the cattle grazing here and there. The young men of the covered community are the ones who take the cattle for grazing. They go along with their food. They carry a lot of porridge along with them. So when you're there, you will not have any scarcity for food. They'll offer the porridge to you. They make their own music instruments. They make their own flute using the bamboo there. They make their own harp using the local woods which they get there. You can enjoy the music over there in that forest region. It will be such a soothing, positive feeling for you after you have had the food and the porridge from that area. Just keep moving from there. Talk to those young boys. If you want, you can even discuss about music with them and even learn how to make natural harps. Now this guy got a little confident and he said, "Oh, I thought this place is going to be very tough to reach. Now I feel a little better. It's going to be even better. Wait. After the Mullai region, it's again the most festive-filled place of agricultural lands, the Marudam, where you'll have complete greenery everywhere, no scarcity of food. Rice will be filled up everywhere. Literally, rice will be overflowing in the repositories. They'll be cultivating mostly red rice, and these red rice will be kept in heaps. To see these heaps of red rice, it look as if they are some golden mountains. And believe me, this area is always so luxurious, full of festivals. So you need to really stay there and enjoy yourself. The little children there keep playing with the lilies and watermelon over there, and they make their own garlands. They, pound their own rice, make flattened rice, have that for snacks, and just enjoy themselves. I would really recommend you to stay there in the Marudam land for few days. It is a place where, people will definitely not like to move. But after staying, yes, please continue your journey. You will find a lot of carpenters on the way. The carpenters would have made small, small chariots for the young kids. So you will have the big chariots of the kings and the small chariots of the children all moving around the road. Just have a look at all that. If you're tired, on the way, you'll again have the sugarcane mills. You can have a good natural amount of sugarcane juice and just take some nap. Keep traveling. You will find the seashore area of Neithal. You would have always thought Neithal is a place for sadness, but it's not so. People there make special liquor, which is actually fermented for 2 days, 2 nights. You should not miss the liquor made in Neithal place. Just taste that, enjoy that, and just get to taste all their favorite fish varieties. Once you have traveled across all these landscapes, I'm definitely sure you'll be in good health and good health, physical wise and mental wise. So now, after that, you will start reaching the historical place of Mamalapuram. You will be astonished to see the stone temples over there, the amount of trade which is happening over there. Just keep seeing that. And definitely, it's such a luxurious place. You're not going to have any problem about staying or food. So just be there for some time and keep traveling. And finally, you're going to reach the historical place of Kanchipuram. The moment you see the tall mansions and women just roaming around playing flower balls with lot of jewels adorned on themselves, wearing all the silk attire, you can realize that you have reached the Kachi, which is Kanchipuram. Just enter Kanchipuram and go to King Thurian's palace. He'll welcome you if you say you are a harp musician. Do perform your harp music over there. He'll just listen it for us, but he knows from the background you are coming. So he'll definitely start attending to you first. The moment he sees you with these stone attire, the first thing he would do is to give you some luxurious silk garments to change. After taking a fresh watered bath with all the herbs, you can then change your dress into the silk garments which are presented by Thirayan. Then a big dinner will be awaiting to you. He has such good cooks around him. They would have cooked so many varieties of food for you. All those foods will be kept in silver vessels. When you enter into your dinner room, you will think as if the sparkling silver vessels are stars in the sky. The very eyesight will actually tempt you to taste the food which he gives. So just stay there in Thirayan's palace. Play your harp music till his heart content. Take the royal treatment afforded there. All your poor appearance will completely disappear. You will become as rich as me. And when you're coming back, he'll again gift you with so much of gifts. You literally even a golden horse. So with all that goods, you can come back and live with your family here in all peace and luxury. Believe me, I think you can start your journey today itself. So this guy is completely, taken back with the descriptions which the rich harp musician tells, and he decides, okay, so I think I'm going to start my journey now. Thank you very much. I'll again meet you with more gifts. Let us meet together and do a great performance here with our harp music. And he starts his music journey to Kanchipuram.
you, Meenakshi. This felt like a complete heritage walk from where the musicians met all the way to Kanchipuram. So looks like I'm going to try and see if I can get to Kanchipuram through Kurunji, Mullai, Marudamland, Mamallapuram, and Kanchi. And I love the way there's so much of passion in what you said. I could see that you're really into heritage. You knew every single detail, what rice is being grown where, what food they wear, how people are rich here for such and such a reason. And I love how casually you just said that they steal cattle in this place, and absolutely amazing and very, very visual the entire journey was. I said, I am looking forward to taking this heritage walk with you myself someday.
Thank you, Vinitha. Thank you,
Uh,
Pratigya.
Opening it up to the audience, anybody wants to share?
Just answering your question, cattle stealing was the first form of war.
Oh, okay.
So cattle were the greatest form, was the first wealth a human being
It
could
was, yes,
acquire. So so the cattle stealing is the first form of war which would have even happened.
Makes sense, yes. Because I remember when I was really, really tiny, and my great grandpa, they used to talk about, this person is rich. Oh, he has so much of cattle. That was such a
Yes,
common thing. Cattle and land, of course, but cattle was also one of the reasons. Oh, they had 3 guy, or they had 4 buffaloes, or it talks about how rich or poor you are. So
And
makes
now
sense.
they talk about land. They say this person has so much of land, but earlier it was like he has so much of cattle.
Cattle, yes, yes, very well pointed. Thanks for that.
Yeah,
Yes, Meena, please go ahead.
yeah, Meenakshi, it was such a beautiful narrative, and the travelogue, you can call it a travelogue where we were literally traveling along. And the way you narrated the places, Kanjipuram, and all the rice, that made out of rice. So the description of a place, as I said, history has become like what you call the place, and the historical background has become interesting when you narrated in a story way. So thank you for taking us along.
Thanks.
Yes, Shilpa, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, Meenakshi. So I love the
Quick
visual
question for
description
Meenakshi.
of
Can
your
anyone hear me?
narrative. It was like I was going along with you. I was able to see it so vividly. Thank you so much for giving such a detailed description. And I think now it's on my travel list. And when I'll go and whenever I'll see those places, I think I'll remember you.
Thank you. That will be my greatest honor.
Veena, yes, please go ahead.
I also resonate with Nina and Shilpa. Thank you for the virtual tour. I also basically love this heritage walk. When I was in Pune, we did have one, so it was wonderful. And you described everything so beautifully. We could almost visualize everything you said. The detailed description, which, Pratigya also pointed out. We also felt that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Veena.
Yes,
Eric,
it was wonderful. And the thing is that you were able to give a detailed description because you've researched, especially from the epics, from Silaparigaram and Manimehali, and the fact is there really was a complex society here 2,000 years ago. And as you say, you are a cultural historian, interested in everyday life of people. So it's just fantastic that you have done the research and that the documentation is there in the ancient literature. See, this is why I was so shocked when I read Silaparigaram in English translation. In 40 years ago, because it told about life, everyday life in Pumpuhar then. I had thought all ancient Indian literature would be about gods flying in the sky. But no, the literature written 1,500, 2,000 years ago, it gives full documentation of life in those days. And it's just so wonderful that you have dedicated yourself to absorbing this material and being able to share it. You know,
If
when I first visited India in 1988, what is it, 34, 37 years ago, I did a similar walk. I went to Pumpuhar and I walked to Madurai and then later to the Kerala border, poetically speaking, following in the footsteps of Kannagi. So, you know, it's about almost 500 kilometers. But of course, I was not aware of the cultural detail of the things that had happened in that along that path 2,000 years ago. But with your research and your storytelling, you can fill in the information of what actually was happening, not just with the kings and wars and battles, but in everyday life, the different professions, what was happening in the arts. So you are a real cultural treasure that you carry within you the cultural treasures of ancient Tamil Nadu.
Thank you so much, Eric. As you say, our ancient literatures talk more about the common men and mostly the common men who lived in the various landscapes. So that's the beauty. So even before 2000 years before, they were able to, classify landscapes, and they were able to find, talk about the people living in each landscapes, about their occupation. Each had their own musical tone. The music notes used in, every landscape was different. The mood in every landscape was different. The food in every landscape was different. So the story I narrated was from a work called Perumbanatrupadai. But as you said, even in Silapadigaram, when Kannagi travels, even she travels across the various landscapes. So even there, that description is there. And to read as a reader, it's really amazing how they have captured so much of information.
And it's just so amazing that ancient Tamil culture, the writers and the culture in general considered everyday life important enough to write about.
Yes.
In many places around the world, literature from 1,500 or 2,000 years ago, the literature there is about the kings and about the gods. The everyday life of the people is not recorded. But somehow in Tamil Nadu, it was, to some degree. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks for giving me this opportunity.
To add to what you were saying, Eric, so in a lot of ways, these ancient scriptures, these ancient stories, for them, not just the main character is the main character, but as you're saying, the casual life, the everyday life is equally important. It's like it runs parallelly with the story, if you want to put it that way, and because it's considered equally important by the author. That's a very valid thing that you've put, something to ponder over.
The Tamil epics are a portrait of society.
Yes. True.
Meenakshi, did you write the story down? Meenakshi, did you write the story down? Have you written this?
No. Actually, it is based on a true literature piece, which actually goes like a travelogue. It is a travelogue. I would have made, very small changes, but the story is a true story written 2,000 years before. And even the landscapes which it describes are all true. The Kanjipuram still exists. The Mamallapuram still exists. And, it's a UNESCO site.
Right.
So certain things which are mentioned in literature, certain places would have got changed, but most of the places which, Tamil literatures mention, like Madurai or Eric pointed out, the Poombugar or in the Mamallapuram or the Kanjipuram, they're all there still. And still Mamallapuram and Kanjipuram are very celebrated historical cities.
I think this could be really interesting, like as a part of a tourism pamphlet, or
Yes,
when people
yes,
visit
yes,
these
yes,
places,
yes,
they
yes,
could read
definitely.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, well, as I say, 35 years ago, I walked this path from the coast to the mountains, and then 14 years ago, myself and my wife Magdalene and team, we took a group by a van, air-conditioned van, to visit the different places, and we made a little documentary movie about it. I'll put the link in the chat section. And it can happen again anytime. If anybody wants to visit the places of Carnegie as a group, it can be arranged. And what we did 14 years ago, we met with people in the different communities and invited them to tell stories and invited them to, we engaged them to give us lessons in storytelling. Because, the storytelling is different in the different locations. The accent is different in the different locations. So it was sort of a cultural tour. But you see, we know when this poem was written and when Silappadigaram was written approximately because of the style of written Tamil that it's written in. Tamil has evolved through the ages, and the way Tamil was written 2,000 years ago is different from the way it was written 1,500 years ago. So within a few hundred years, we can see when these pieces of literature were written from the style of language that's used.
Just add to it, actually, being a kolam artist, I have also designed a sari which carries images of women who lived in these five landscape, the Kurunji, Mullai, Marudam, Neidal, and all, based on the occupation which they had, performed. I've just pasted it on the chat. So, if it's the Neidal, the seashore, then it's a fisherwomen. So in the mountainous places, you have the tribe. And in the forest region, Mullai, as I said, they are the covered pastoral community. And the agricultural places, you had the, agricultural farmers. So just as a tribute to the Sangam women, I had actually designed a sari called the Aindinai sari, which has images of all these women who lived 2000 years before.
Interesting one there.
It's really beautiful. Every
Yeah,
detail you
beautiful.
have put in the sari.
Yeah.
Nina, did you want to add something more? I think I saw your hand up. I'm not sure. Nina?
That's what I was looking at, that sari, the designs,
Sari.
and it was like beautiful.
As I described, that curd churning and all, so that
Yeah.
Mullai covered women would be churning curd there.
Taking us back to the historical, like cave paintings and all those things. In sari, you have covered all these things. Thank you so much, and so beautifully done.
Thanks.
Just to add to what you were saying, Meenakshi, you're talking about a kolam, you being a kolam expert. I hope you're aware that we have a little workshop on kolam and storytelling coming up the next weekend. This is by Lavanya Prasad from Bangalore. So you might want to look into those details. Just see how it resonates with you. And
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much once again, Meenakshi. This is a very different kind of a storytelling, and it took us down a very, very different path. And thank you so much for that.
Thanks.
We'll move on to our next teller for the day. We now have Ramya Srinidhi joining us from Bangalore, India. Ramya, please fully introduce yourself and share a story with us.
Good afternoon. Wow, what a wonderful story, and such a beautiful, line of stories that we have been listening. My name is Ramya Srinidhi. I'm from Bangalore, India, and I'm a storyteller. I'm a co-founder of a group called Katha Corner, along with a friend, where I do storytelling and theatre workshops for children. and I'm the founder of Indian Kamishibai Association. So we have a wonderful group of people who tell stories in the ancient form of Japanese street storytelling. So moving on, I think with just that much about myself, I wanted to, when I was looking for a story to tell at this platform, the theme was about growing and maturing. So I was wondering, how do I understand growing and maturing? And one thing that came to my mind was to see, to understand all this, I need to understand all shades of that, right? The different shades of growth, different shades of love, different shades of maturing. So that is what was on my mind when I was trying to choose a story to tell. And so with that note, let me begin. What kind of motivates us, or what guides us to do most of what we do, is our emotions, right? So, and two of the most strong emotions are love and hate, and they often occupy same space in our lives, and when pushed to extremes, they can make us behave in surprising ways. With that thought, I leave you. While you're mulling on that thought, let me begin with my story. In some natures, there are no half tones. There is just raw primary colors, no gray area. Such was the nature of John Bodman, always on the extreme of his behavior. Well, that wouldn't have been a problem if he was not married to his lovely wife, Mrs. Bodman, who was the exact duplicate of himself. Well, marriage, they say, is at best a compromise. But if two people are tied together who are of uncompromising nature, then there is trouble. Incompatibility of nature, incompatibility of behavior could often be a valid case for divorce. But back in 19th century England, no such subtle provisions was made. So unless the wife was a criminal and the husband was a criminal and cruel, two people who were married had to be together until death do them apart. Well, John Bodman was a stockbroker dealer, and he had come to a place in his life where he just hated his wife. The two of them just couldn't stand each other. The only thing that they had for each other was hatred of the bitter and the most arrogant kind. And in his mind, he had made a decision to get rid of his wife at any cost, even if it meant to kill her. Was he sane or insane when he made this decision? Nobody knows. But in his mind, he had already thought of a way that he can craft a murder which would look just like an accident, as he wanted to be done with his wife. Well, as in the case of Mrs. John Bodman, the most beautiful and lovely and educated woman that she was also filled with hatred for her husband. There was one thing that Mrs. Bodman would do. She would accompany her husband wherever he went, be it office tours, parties, lunch, dinner, wherever he went. She would always accompany him, and she knew how much her husband hated that. But she would accompany him wherever he went. So when John Bodman told his wife that he was planning to spend the month of July in Switzerland, she said nothing. She quietly made her own plans for travel. So to Switzerland, the silent couple left. It was one of those absolutely beautiful and stunning hotels in Switzerland. It was about 1.5 miles above sea level, and the path was zigzag roads leading all the way to the top. And from the veranda of that hotel, the view was beautiful, picturesque. You could see tall, beautiful mountains, snow-capped mountains, trees, and it was just lovely. At the same time, there were also numerous dangerous spots that was there in this neighborhood. Well, this particular hotel was not very new to John Bodman. He had visited this place when it's back in his good days when he was a bachelor, and he knew this hotel, and he also knew that at a certain distance from the hotel there was a place called the Hanging Outlook. It was a perfect spot, he thought. It was slightly away from the hotel, and the nearest hotel next to it was covered by a shoulder of a rock, and far away if you could see, the houses looked like small toys. There was nobody who could see what was going on from this spot, and there was a very short crumbled wall, and behind that was a steep 1-mile drop with the bottom filled with rugged rocks. Nobody could possibly escape that fall. And in his mind, John Bodman knew exactly what he wanted to do. So the next day at breakfast, he decided that, yeah, that's the spot and today is the time. After breakfast, he told his wife, I plan to take a walk in the mountains by about 9 o'clock. To that, Mrs. Bodman replied, all right, I will join you. So we will leave at 9 o'clock, he said. 9, I'll be ready. At 9 o'clock, Mr. and Mrs. Bodman quietly started walking towards the Hanging Outlook. They walked quietly for a couple of steps. On top of Mr. Bodman's mind was the moment was reaching closer and closer. All he could think was just pushing his wife out of that. All he could think of was murder. After they walked a few steps, Mrs. Bodman stopped and shuddered. What happened? Are you tired? He said in a gruff voice. Mrs. Bodman looked at her husband and called him out and said, John, if you were kinder to me in the earlier days, do you think things would have been different between us? What nonsense are you talking? I don't see any point for that discussion now, he said. That's right, John. But have you? I have lots to regret. Have you nothing? She asked. What are you talking? I just don't see any point for this discussion. I think you know that all I have for you is hatred. Absolute hatred. I just can't stand you. We are just tied together. That's all, he said. All right then, she said with the same coldness back in her face, back in her voice. I was just giving you a chance. I was just giving you a second chance. Giving me a second chance? Are you out of your mind? I would not need anything from you. A person who hates his wife so much would not want anything from her, let alone give me a chance. They walked. Now they were at the Hanging Outlook. John Bodman immediately went and sat on that crumbled wall, and by then Mrs. Bodman started walking left and right, clasping and unclasping her hand. Stop it! Why are you walking like this? And come and sit next to me, he called out. Why are you walking like a wild animal? I walk like a wild animal because I am one. Well, you just told me how much you hated me, right, John? Well, as much as you hate me, as much as the kind of person that you are, I am sure, I am very sure, the thought of murder would not have crossed your mind. But let me tell you, it has crossed mine. As soon as he heard the word murder, his body went cold. What? What are you talking? Yes, yes, my dear. Let me tell you how much I hate you and how far I am ready to go for revenge. Back in England, I have told all my friends that you have got me to Switzerland to murder me. As soon as he heard the word, he said, "Good Lord, what's wrong with you? How could you even say that?" Well, that's not all. I have even informed at the hotel that you're taking me now to kill me. Of course, they cautioned me, but then two men have started following us at a distance. Soon they will reach the hanging outlook. Maybe try explaining to them that this was just an accident. So saying, she pulled a few lace from her dress, just scattered it there, and before John Bodman could even say a word, she jumped and went shrieking and swirling across the wall into the dark, deep abyss. Two men walked there soon after, only to find John Bodman standing there all alone. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It is called Alpine Divorce by Robert Barr. I have slightly adapted it to tell here, and I hope you enjoyed this story. And yes, that's all I have to say.
My, such a chilling end and twist to that story. Oh, thanks for that, Ramya. Really lovely. I think for me, it's the twist which took it away, and you really kept it from us. We did not see that coming at all. Definitely didn't see that coming. Yes, Meenakshi, you want to go ahead?
Yes, I just loved your face expressions. It was literally like, watching a Bollywood movie, not a storytelling.
Oh my God, thank you.
I was just looking at the way your face expression changed. I was more glued to your face than the story details.
Thank you.
So the wife committed suicide?
Yes, she committed
she did.
suicide. She jumped off the wall and she committed suicide. And
I'm getting nervous.
Yes,
yesterday we had a story about a wife who murders her husband.
Yes.
Now today we have a
I know.
suicide. Those of us who are married are a little endangered.
Those were exactly my thoughts, Eric. Oh, two stories
Yes.
back to
Two
back about
stories,
husband and
yeah.
wife. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I know. When I heard Shraddha, I was like thinking, oh my God.
Oh dear, something is resonating with a lot of storytellers in India recently. No wonder Eric is getting worried.
Be nice to your wife.
Yes, Nina, please go ahead, and then maybe Veena after that.
Yeah, Ramya, I think in the morning we attended your session, the workshop from Kamishibai to this chilling and thrilling story. It was like, we were glued to it. Like we were like sitting like this, next what, and the twist that came up, the wife doing it herself and
Yeah.
putting him in trouble. Like
Yeah.
he didn't leave him for what he did, and he never thought that would happen. And it's like it was beautiful, and all your facial expressions were like, because we've seen you as a Kamishibai storyteller, and for me, this is something which I really adore. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Means a lot. Thank you so much.
Yes, Ramya has a way of keeping it very calm and easy. I've not seen your Kamishibai yet, Ramya, although I've heard a lot about it. I've always seen these tellings and I always love the way you share. Love it.
Thank you so much, Pratigya. Means a lot. Thank you.
Yes, Veena, please go ahead.
Ramya, I attended your workshop today morning, and what a change from that to this. Your looks, oh my God, all the killer looks when you were saying. I love thrillers, So at the
Yeah.
moment you said, I knew, oh my God, this is going to be a very interesting story. And the ending was, I tell you, it
Ooh.
really took me. What a wow
Yeah.
ending.
Yeah.
Thank you
True.
so much. You really narrated so beautifully. Loved your expressions and the
Thank you.
story.
Thank you so much.
A very dark and chilling choice,
Yes.
Ramya, I must say.
I know. I just wanted a different shade to it, and I was also exploring, seeing how we can understand growth, love, maturity if we don't understand the other shades of it, the other extreme of it, and like the character says, how far I can go for revenge, how far I can go, to put you in trouble, and oh my God.
In fact, while listening to your story, I had a quick flashback of a little discussion or a little rift I had with my husband about an hour ago. I can be really, really
Oh.
hard. And I gave in good. So I'm like, oh, poor thing. I better get back and get things sorted quickly after this.
Wow. I'm glad. I'm glad it's having a good effect.
Good effect as well.
So
Yeah, that's
Eric, don't
possible.
worry. You're safe.
Oh dear. Okay. Anybody else? Any other thoughts? Because it's very chilling and dark telling.
A variety. I mean, a total shift from what was just told by Meenakshi ma'am. So I was like, oh wow, how does it fit in here?
It
But
all
yeah,
fits in here. It's all about love and revenge and anger this time. But yes.
yeah.
All right. Yes, Nilguan, you want to go
Yeah.
ahead?
It's funny in a way because I'm a couple counselor. I work with couples, who indeed come to a place sometimes where there's so much
Yeah.
hatred and resentment and all of it,
True.
And in that story, I thought there was an opportunity
Yeah.
to go
Yeah.
into
Just
stuff.
another
She
chance.
asked him, I
Yeah.
gave you a chance. I wonder what twist it would have taken if
Yes.
he would have answered, like if he would have be able to kind of say, why he lost respect or love for. So of course, from my professional point of view, this is where I would angle and just go
True.
deeper, with
True.
people. So of course there was a story of regret in a way, or of no other choice, which is hard to take, isn't it? If there's no other choice, I have to kill myself and trap him in it, rather than going into some deeper things. But yeah,
Of course, there's always another choice.
Eric is
yeah, I
nodding really.
think
For
yes,
one thing, she could have pushed him off.
yeah,
But
yeah.
what I like about this story is how she says, instead of that, this puts him more in trouble than that.
It sure does. Yeah.
Yeah.
And fair
According
enough,
to
she gave him a second choice, but
yeah.
he chose what he chose.
His fault.
I know. Despite the fact that we know it was not his mistake in a way, somehow we're all
Yeah.
willing to take it up and accept it with a laugh.
But why
How chilling
should,
we've become.
I mean, from one point of view, why should she destroy herself because he's a jerk?
Yeah. Debatable.
I think it's good for twist the tale also. Like if you want to give, what if this didn't happen? So then you'll get a lot of versions like we
Yeah.
are discussing now.
It reminds me a bit of the story of Avayar, the ancient Tamil poetess who the legend is, and her statue is on Marina Beach. She was a poet. Meenakshi, I'm sure you know her story very well and her poetry. She was a poetess and traveled around and sang and wrote poetry. And at a certain point, her parents said, "Well, that's all very good, dear, but now it's time to settle down and get married."
Mm.
And she said, "No." She said, it's not my nature. It's not my destiny to spend my life taking care of a man or children. I'm a poet." So they kept pressuring her until finally she ran into the forest and prayed to her God, let me appear so old and unattractive that no man will want me."
Mm.
And her wish came true. From then on, she appeared as a bent old woman carrying a walking stick, and that's how people saw her. But in fact, she led a long, healthy life and continued as a poet. But young Tamil women have said to me, "That's not a good story. Well, why should she sacrifice her good looks because of this family pressure?"
True, true, very true. Probably the times have changed. Probably, back in the times where it was that was not even an option to, because this was the only way, in the story that you just said, for
Mm-hmm.
her to, let go of her looks, and that was the only safe way to be in the society where she could do what she really wanted to do if she wanted to pursue the life of a poetess.
Mm-hmm.
This was the price that she had to pay.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike today,
I
the
was
times have changed.
sorry. I was thinking it showed the depth of hatred she had for him because she wanted him to suffer so much.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
one way of making sure that he would suffer his whole life by destroying himself in that way.
Yeah, so much so that you destroy your own self. I mean,
Yeah.
that's I mean, this can be so much of a debate can come up with this because
Well,
so much.
there is a literary and psychological tradition that if there is a form of suicide that is done as a curse on the other person.
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
Well, I think
that's
suicide on the form of a curse is something that you find a lot of local tales across the land in a way. I'm sure a lot of Indians would agree to that. There are lots of stories that talk about, sati, especially. So in a way, it is about how suicide is taken the form of a curse, and lots of stories on that. Yes, before we move to the next teller, I must say, Ramya, that I was expecting a very straightforward story when she gave a second choice. I thought he's going to say, "Oh, is that so? I felt this," and the beautiful mountains of Switzerland will give a good, happy ending to the story.
wow.
And but this one was more interesting for sure.
Yeah, yeah, maybe
I
ideally,
think, yeah, yeah,
and
true.
also stories like this should be told so that it I think Nilgeen said, this is a point where you can stop and reflect and see if there was a second chance. Come, let's rewrite the story. If there was a second chance, like Pratigya said, maybe we'll rewrite it this way. I don't know if it's true, but it requires more work. It definitely requires a lot of work from both parties involved in it, but it can be done. So that's or this is, I mean, you've destroyed yourself. You don't even know what will happen, but you have destroyed yourself with the thought that that could bring more trouble. So yeah, a lot of very interesting. I mean, it's a beautiful piece of short story. So stories written back in the time, I mean, stand the test of time itself. Can so much can come out of such stories.
I think even if it's something that it can't be done, it can at least be tried
Yeah,
and then given up upon, or depending how it goes, but it can be tried. Yes, I think
yeah.
on that thought, we'll move on to the last teller for the day,
Thank
Ramya, once
you,
again for a very interesting, twisting tale, and of course, in your beautiful style.
thank you
Yeah,
so
Uh,
Rami,
much.
I want to say your storytelling was very real. Your acting was very realistic.
Thank you,
Excellent
Eric.
acting.
Thank
Yes,
you so much. Thank
yes,
you.
yes.
Thank you. And of course, I will give some credit to Eric to making it, Eric comes with the style of don't over dramatize, don't do too much drama. So I think the story also didn't require me to do that. And I also tried to keep it because I wanted the audience, the listeners to feel it with just subtle, differences with the emotions. So thank you, Eric. That's a compliment coming from you.
Lovely, super. Okay, we're moving on to the last teller for the day. We have Juliana Marin flying from Colombia, but right now she's somewhere in India. For some reason, she's not willing to tell us exactly where, but more importantly, she's here to share a story with us. Juliana, please introduce yourself fully and share a story.
Hola, hello everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm in Rishikesh. I couldn't tell you beforehand where I would be because I've been nomadic for the past 3 years, traveling around the world. And India is my last big stop. It's my first time here. I've been wanting to come here for years. And now I'm exploring this magical country from as much as possible. And we'll be going to Hyderabad soon and exploring a bit of the central. But right now I'm in the mountains, remembering a bit the mountains of my own home. I'm from Medellin, which is the second largest city in Colombia. It's in a valley surrounded by mountains, and it's a big city for us, at least, for about 4 million people. But the story I bring you is from the jungle. It's from the indigenous people from long ago. Now, if you go from Medellin, which is in the center of the mountains, and you go south, 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 all the way to the heart of Bolivia. And you look on the map, it's almost like Bolivia is cut with a knife, green and brown, where the Amazon meets the desert. Now, if you get to that heart of Bolivia, that region of the Amazon, even to this day, there are still Yuracare people living there. A long time ago, there were many, many, many more of them. And now their land has been reduced. Their stories have many been forgotten, but not this one. Their world and our world has not ended yet, but it almost did. Almost. You see, if you cross that line, that knife slash from the green to the brown, deep into the desert, into those cold, empty mountains, and you go all the way off the map, there lives Sararuma. And Sararuma cannot die. And that's why he loves to kill the things that can. And long ago, he almost ended the world. Almost. Now, if Sararuma had destroyed the fruit trees of everyone, if he had set fire to the entire world, well, the people would have come together to put out the blaze and the world would have been spared. But no, 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 no. Sararuma knows us too well. Instead, what he did was that in the middle of the night, while no one could see, he snuck with a flaming branch and set fire to the fragrant fruit trees on this side of the river. And as people woke up with the blaze and the heat in their faces, and they ran out with calabashes and gourds, carrying water from the river to throw on the trees, Sararuma appeared in his billowing red cloak. Look, look, on the other side, look at them, sleeping peacefully. They did this. They have been jealous of your crops and of your people. They are the ones who are trying to destroy you. And riled up by hatred, the people dropped their gourds and calabashes full of water and broke off flaming branches from the trees and jumped into their dugout canoes to paddle to the other side for revenge. And soon the entire world was in flames. Only 2 people survived, a man and a woman. Each on their own side of the river, they had begged their people to make peace. They had tried to convince their friends, their family. They had done everything they could, but sometimes You just cannot change those around you. And sometimes when there's nothing else to do, all you can do is leave. And so with broken hearts, they left behind the sounds of war. They left behind the screams and the cries of their family, of their friends, of their people shouting after them, "Coward, coward, traitor." They left all of that. And they ran to where they did not know. But as they ran through the ashes raining down from the sky, as they ran with little animals running along with them, because the animals, of course, are wise, and they too were fleeing as best they could, they found each other. And in the midst of the terrible destruction, they just grabbed each other's hands and ran to the edge of the nothingness. And there they dug a hole and climbed deep inside, under the earth, and waited. And there in the darkness, waiting, still feeling the heat seeping down from the ground above them, still hearing the screams and cries of the dying, until everything was silence. And there, with only the dark and their own madness and each other for company, there's nothing harder than waiting, is there? That helplessness. Until finally it had been silent for what they felt was long enough, and they crawled out to the top, to the opening of the hole. "But wait," said the man, "not yet." And he pulled out a stick, a small twig, and he pushed it up through the ground onto the surface and pulled it back. The stick had burst into flames. "Too soon," he said, "too soon." And so they crawled back down, down, down into the darkness and waited another tortured night. And the next day, the woman crawled up and held up the stick. Too soon, too soon. 8 days and 8 nights they waited, until finally they held up the stick and it came back cold to the touch. And so they dug their way out, blinking in the blinding watery sun, in the great hazy fog left by the smoke that blanketed everything. And as they crawled out of the hole into what was left of the world, ashes everywhere. Where were the fragrant fruit trees? Where were their homes, their friends, their people? Where were the dugout canoes, the animals, even the river? Even the river was gone, blanketed by a cover of ash, and there was nothing left. And they dropped to their knees, wailing, 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 and their wails alerted Sararoma. Survivors! Well, he came billowing in his cloud of smoke, in his red dress. He came to destroy them, but seeing them there crumpled on the ground, holding each other and wailing, "I don't even need to kill you. You will do that yourselves. Look, the world is over. You have survived, but for what? For what? There is nothing left. There is no one left. Now I will just sit here and watch you die." And sometimes there can be a bit of rebellion inside, a bit of a spark of anger. Very often this causes destruction, but sometimes it is exactly what is needed to stand up and say, "No." Sararoma suddenly became a little bit smaller. He had been towering above with his head billowing amongst the clouds, but when the man and the woman stood up and looked at him and said no, he reduced. "No," said the woman, "we will not die. We have each other. each other. You are enemies. You're from opposite sides of the river. It was his people who killed your family. It was her family who killed your friends. How can you say that you have each other? We will make our own peace, said the man. And Sararuma became even smaller. But there's nothing left. There's nothing left. The world is over. There is nothing. Then said the woman, we will build it back up. Sararuma became even smaller, but you are alone. You will fight. All couples fight, especially when you are from enemies. You will become enemies. You will tear your eyes out. You will not. You are all alone. We will have children, said the woman. The world is over. The rains will come, said the man. And Sararuma became even smaller, and all around them at their feet, the ashes started moving as little animals started poking their noses up into the sky as well, digging themselves out of the holes where they had been hiding. And they came and they gathered around the feet of the man and the woman, and there with all the animals behind them and around them, they looked at Sararuma. And Sararuma said, the world is over. Then we will begin again. And Sararuma became so small that the wind almost whisked away. And as the wind blew and blew, and the ashes billowed around, and in the distance you could hear the thunder, and thick, fat, heavy clouds started rolling in, and the sky became dark, dark with heavy, heavy, thick, beautiful rain. And the woman knelt down, brushing away the ashes. And in her hand was a seed.
A beautiful story of hope and so wonderfully told, Juliana. Thoroughly loved it. I think there's lots to ponder over that story. And the minute you began, it felt like Sararoma was the politician, just making people fight against each other for no reason whatsoever. And the story is so relevant even today. Bang on every single thing that happened. And the way Sararoma became smaller and smaller and smaller, really a story of hope for me. Definitely, yes. Um, any thoughts, anybody? While people are still pondering over the story, Juliana, do you want to tell us where did you collect the story from? You said it's from your own land. Looks like Juliana's frozen. She did say her internet may not be that great.
The story of the Yurakare people.
Sorry, I think we missed it. Could you
You cut
repeat
out
that,
for a
please?
minute. Yes. The story is from the Yurakare people. They're an indigenous group from the Bolivian Amazon. Right now, there are only about 6,000 of them left that we know of. Unfortunately, 500 years ago, during the European colonization of South America, 98% of the indigenous people were killed off. And there are remnants of great nations, what were once great nations with even cities with 1 million people in them. It was massive, very strong civilizations. But unfortunately, the combination of guns, germs, and steel reduced the people, the lands in a way that has never been seen before anywhere else. So in fact, in Colombia, in Latin America in general, we don't really have much contact with indigenous people, even though they're still among us. Latin Americans like myself were a mixture. We're a new race of people, so to speak, with mixed European colonizer ancestry and many different indigenous groups and many different African groups as well who were brought over as slaves. And so we don't have that many of our own roots that go back very far, and we don't have that many of our own stories. I'm telling an indigenous tale, knowing that it is not my story to tell, but when I try, I do like to try to research as much as I can and find, and when I get the chance to spend time with Indigenous communities and learn a bit about the way they see the world and tell a bit about them, because they're still there. They're not gone. They're not. The world has still not ended.
Juliana, you're such an excellent communicator.
Thank you.
Truly.
There's a school for storytelling and oral narration in Colombia, in Medellin. It's 5 semesters long, and I really, really enjoyed that program.
So you attended that school?
Yes, yes, of course.
But it's not just that. Your use of language is just brilliant. And I don't hear much of a Spanish accent in you. How is that?
I'm lucky I grew up bilingual. My mother's from the United States, my father's Colombian.
Mm. And I bet at least one of your parents is a college professor?
No, but my family has always valued study.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been good to be here.
May I? Very, very interesting story, very well told, and the atmosphere is so different from India, and you have portrayed that very beautifully. And your storytelling is wonderful. At the same time, don't you think it's a sort of a universal message coming out from the story that creation cannot be destroyed by any one of us? Like we have this Noah's Ark story, or Matsya Avatara in Hindu philosophy. So all these stories tell us that one person or one demon or anybody cannot come and destroy. Creation has been there, it will continue. Somehow or the other, it has to continue. So that is a very beautiful message that has come out of your story. And the location is so different from ours, and you have brought it out so beautifully. I love it. It's a wonderful story. It woke me up from my afternoon. I wanted to sort of snooze, but it woke me up. It's really lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Indira, for listening.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, beautiful story. And wow, so important. I feel these are the stories to be told in the time where we are right now. It's a story to be told. Absolutely. And it speaks of courage to say no, courage to stand up and yeah, oppose oppression in a sense, and even if it feels almost impossible to win, or even against all the odds, to stand up in a world that is in need of many, many of these brave souls. So thank you very much. I applaud your story and your storytelling, which is beautiful. Thank you.
Achira, and I also love the way you brought all the action into the story. Every time you went boom, and rather boom, booming in, booming in, booming in. It definitely added a lot more flavor to the telling. Of course, the story is wonderful. The choice of the story was great, but the way you said it was absolutely impactful. Loved it. Thoroughly loved it.
Thank you.
May I ask, what does Achira mean? Why is that word for your stories, Achira stories? You want to tell us something about that?
Achira is the name of a South American flower, although it's spread all over the world now. It has very tall, dark green stalks and brilliantly red, very delicate petals about this big. And it's always been my favorite flower. It was only later in life, after years of loving it as a flower, that I discovered that it has healing properties. It's actually planted by the side of the road and in wastelands in order to heal the earth, because it can absorb toxic and heavy metals and things. And even after that, I learned that Achira is a Quechua word, an indigenous word that means storyteller.
Wow. So you're standing up to every meaning of the word 100%, trying to, heal the world through your stories. And of course, you're an excellent storyteller as well.
Thank you.
Yes, anybody else? Any other thoughts?
There is that resonates with me, what you just said, because there's a legend here in South India that there was an ancient holy person named Agasthyar. And he lived in the mountains with the tribal people. And the tribal people say he taught them about using flowers for medicine. And also there are various legends that he taught them some sacred songs. There's one legend that he taught them the Tamil language. So the mixture of flower and beautiful culture is there. I think it probably appears in various cultures.
Okay. I guess with that, we'll wrap up today's session. We've had some amazing stories. What a huge variety just across these 5 stories. We've had some indigenous stories which got us thinking about hope and strength to say no. We've had stories of mermaids, and we've had stories of a travel log across Tamil Nadu, knowing about different people, different landscapes, and of course, a very, very chilling story of being careful with your husband or your wife, being careful with your spouse. I think with that, we'll wrap up today's session. Had a lovely time. Thank you, all of you, for joining in with us. We'll stop the recording now, and I think we'll be ready for the next workshop.
Thank you very much, Pratigya. Great.